We have to stop the killings. Putin has many demands, but we do not know all of them. And if there are really as many as we heard, then it will take time to go through them all. It's necessary to cease fire and work quickly on a final deal.
President Zelensky just wrapping up a meeting with key European leaders ahead of a potentially monumental face-to-face at the White House. President Donald Trump hinting at big news coming soon regarding the war in Ukraine. He is set to meet with President Zelensky and several other world leaders. This is a follow-up from the high-stakes meeting with President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Leaders from the UK, France, Germany, Italy are all among some of the high-profile names set to be attending. We're going to be hearing from lawmakers and military experts this hour on whether this could mean an end to the over 3-year war. Will this meeting make a difference? And Pope Leo also calling for peace in this morning's Vatican City blessing, praying for a positive outcome in tomorrow's White House meeting. Plus, back here in the United States, Washington, D.C. streets are about to get more crowded with more National Guards troops. 3 Republican-backed states sending hundreds of more troops to our nation's capital. And Lone Star lockup now open for business. How will it compare to Florida's Alligator Alcatraz? We have global News Nation team coverage for you today on all of the top stories. We've got Robert Sherman joining us live from Kyiv and Jorge Ventura standing by in Texas. Well, good afternoon to you. I'm Anna Koyman here in New York City. It's Sunday, August the 17th, 3 o'clock on the East Coast, and it's time for News Nation Now. World leaders from around the globe preparing to come to the United States to meet with President Trump at the White House and push forward a pathway to peace to try and end Russia's war with Ukraine. This comes after Friday's historic meeting between Russian President Putin and Trump in Alaska. News Nation's Robert Sherman is live for us on the ground in Kyiv, Ukraine, with the very latest. Robert, what are they telling you on the ground there?
Hey there, Anna. Well, every diplomatic move that's made certainly feels highly consequential and high stakes, with tomorrow's chapter looking to be much more of the same. Already, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky coming back to Washington. That's a big deal. But who he's bringing in tow underscores the magnitude of the moment. You have heads of state and power brokers from across Europe. The President of France, the Prime Minister of the UK, the Chancellor of Germany, not to mention the NATO Secretary General and the Commissioner of the EU, all coming to Washington as well, as they say they intend to stand by Ukraine and prepared to be shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as the next phase of these negotiations are set to play out. Take a listen.
Ukraine must be able to uphold its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. There can be no limitations on Ukrainian armed forces, be it cooperation with or other third countries or assistance from other third countries, no limitations for the Ukrainian armed forces. As I've often said, Ukraine must become a steel porcupine, undigestible for potential invaders.
So European leaders saying that Ukraine needs to hold the line here, but the long-term objective from the White House, they have said, when it comes to diplomacy, is getting all 3 of these major parties in the same room together. President Putin, President Zelensky, with President Trump playing that mediating role. A trilateral summit is the objective, with the White House saying they believe if all goes well tomorrow, one could be on the calendar in a matter of days or weeks.
Yeah, and it may be difficult, Robert, for some of our viewers to hear the accents and really understand everything that was being said. The commissioner there of the European Union saying Ukraine needs to become like a steel porcupine, undigestible by its predators, being Putin, of course, who doesn't just want what he has now, he wants even more. What are the main things Ukraine is really looking for from the United States and its allies out of this meeting tomorrow?
Well, you brought up a really good point, Anna, because what Russia has said is that they want total control of all 4 of these regions in eastern Ukraine: Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. If you look at the maps here, you know, they have majority control of all 4 of them. Some more meat on the bone still in Kherson and Zaporizhia, namely here. Ukraine's big concern is that if they pull back from the Donbass region, that they will be setting the table for Russia to carry out another invasion of Ukraine, a 3rd invasion of Ukraine after President Trump leaves office. So what the Ukrainians really want most of all, security guarantees from the West. And you've heard from some White House officials that maybe there's the possibility of direct security guarantees. There may be some more movement on those conversations there. That's a highly critical one for the Ukrainians because their concern is that in 5 years' time, we're going to be watching the same movie all over again. Anna?
Yeah, we've seen it too many times already. News Nation's Robert Sherman live for us in Kyiv. Great reporting. Stay safe, Robert. We're going to get into this even more with U.S. Army combat veteran and national security expert Ricoh Danielson. Lovely to see you again. First, let's talk about Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. And he's revealing today in one of the Sunday shows that Trump and Putin agreed to, quote, robust security guarantees during their summit. Can you explain to our viewers exactly what that means? Because that could take a few different paths, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. So when it comes to a robust security deal, what that means, there has to be two parties that have equal stake at this. And when we break it down to the very minimum layman's terms, it's a matter of understanding what type of security controls that Ukraine's going to get. And it could be anywhere from weapons, ammo, food, supplies, and also part deal of the NATO agreement they want to be a part of. Now, Russia has very strategically said, hey, part of this security agreement is like, we don't mind the Ukraine having additional weapons, not only from NATO, but also specifically from the U.S., but we want territory control. And also on top of that, we want some of our assets to be released from being frozen so they can play in the world economic areas as well. So those are some of the things at a very fundamental level that Russia's asking for.
Right, but to our viewers at home thinking about, who's going to be providing this, it could be France, it could be Britain, it could potentially be even the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was on one of the Sunday shows, and he said he didn't want to get ahead of the president, but that it was on the table and it was something that would be considered for the United States to be providing that as well. The last time Zelensky was here in the United States and in the Oval Office with President Trump, they had this absolute blow up when Zelensky was trying to remind Trump that Putin couldn't be trusted. Listen to this.
Do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
So that explosion happening in February, and we've got these iconic images now of Trump and Zelensky as their relationship began to be mended there at the Vatican after Pope Francis passed away and the funeral, and they were there. I think we've got some video we can show of that. Will there be less tension this time around? Take us into the room. What do you think it'll be like?
Yeah, I think at this point there will be less tension. The tensions will be even lowered, right, in the animosity. At the end of the day, I think that conversation that we just saw rung it home to President Zelensky that he needs to come to this deal, this ceasefire and also peace agreement with some skin in the game. And then we're already on top of that. What we'll probably see is the United States and also NATO provide more and more weapons and also security around it and kind of ease the tensions. But I think that the hostility and also the tension has been a little bit lower now that we know that Putin is willing to have a little bit more concessions.
Yeah, look, the atrocities of war are never pretty, so ugly. And right now there are charity groups that are sounding the alarm of potentially tens of thousands of Ukrainian children that have been kidnapped and are being kidnapped by Russians, by Putin, and then being sold online. Like you can go online and practically pick them based on their eye or their hair color. And then you've got Lindsey Graham, who is saying that it is absolutely time for Putin to send those children home. He was on one of the Sunday shows. Let's take a listen to him.
My bill to make Russia a state-sponsored terrorism is based on the fact that Russia has kidnapped 19,000 Ukrainian children. So any peace deal must include the return of the kidnapped children by Russia to Ukraine. If you don't do that, that's not a just end to the war. And if Putin doesn't return these kids, he should be a state sponsor of terrorism designation under U.S. law.
That split screen there, they're also showing an image of, and we can show it as well, a letter from Melania Trump, our First Lady, that she gave to our president to hand deliver to Putin, beseeching them to bring these children home. Dear President Putin, she says, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into a nation's rustic countryside or a magnificent city center. They dream of love, possibility, and safety from danger. So, of course, it is time for those children to go home, but is it also time for the United States to designate, as Lindsey Graham says, for President Putin and Russia to be considered a state sponsor of terrorism, potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things we've seen here is that women and children are no part of war, and they shouldn't be part of war. And if indeed they're kidnapped, they should be returned to their motherland and also their country. Additionally, there is no need to kidnap anybody. And in the event, and if Putin does this, he should absolutely be deemed a terrorist organization and should be charged at all costs. This is very sad. I can only say it so much, but children do not belong or should not belong in the atrocities of war.
You can't imagine. This is why we want to, one of the many reasons we don't want the fighting to ever come on American soil again either. U.S. Army combat veteran, national security expert Ricoh Danielson, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.